Alright, welcome to my first game dev log for Cavebrawlers. So I'm just going to go ahead and play the game, and then I'll talk some more about the game and I'll go over what's going on in the background. Alright, so you start off in a bar. It's like a disco nightclub part. And then there's an explosion in the background. And in the bottom text it prompts you to press up to interact and get up. So you can stand up and walk around, and you can sit back down on the chair if you come close to it and press up, and it'll play the same animation again. And then there's a little text bar up here that's animated, draws attention to it. And then I'm hoping the player will use the knowledge of pressing up to interact with the chair to interact with the character. So then the character just says, "What the hell was that?" making you curious, and then you want to find out more. And you press up again to exit out of that, and then you can go outside of the bar. So this takes you to the village, and on the right you can see a soldier trapped inside of a cage. And if you talk to him, he says, he tells you to move to the turret and defend the city. So I want to talk about the message, the text box here. So if you press up, it'll pop up and then show the message, and it'll go letter by letter. And then once it's done, it'll show the diamond image. And when you see that, it's a cue to press up again, and it'll move on. And if there's any more text, it'll show that, or it'll just go away. You can also press up again while it's playing to skip it, and then you can press it up again to leave it. So if you move over to the left and try and find the turret that he's talking about, you can see a giant tower, and then the camera stops moving it. So, and you can't move anymore either. So I'm hoping the player will figure out that you have to enter this room. And then I'll move you onto the turret level. This level you have to defend yourself from the... Hold on, let me lower the volume. You have to defend a city from wave of, like, I think it's 6 wave of enemies. So you can press up and down to move the turret. This is a little tutorial for the turret. And you can hold it down to keep moving. And then it says hold D to pull back. You can see the little character's arm moves with the turret, so if it goes up, the animation switches. And then if I hold D, you can see the sprite changes based on the power. And the higher power, the more it's gonna go. The further it's gonna go and the more damage it's gonna go. So you have to defend this tower from the enemies, and if they get close, they'll start attacking. And then you can see that the health of the turret of the tower goes down on each attack. And once it reaches 0, then it'll load the level again, and you have to start all the way over. So right now there's just 2 enemies. It's just the skeletons and the bats. These are going to be the first enemies that I'm going to introduce the player to. I had to do a lot of tweaking for this level because it turned out to be really hard for some people. And after a little bit of tweaking, I think I got it just right. It's not too hard, especially for the first level. And once you finish, it'll wait 3 seconds before loading the next level. And then the next level would take you back outside, but the scene, it's a different scene. And if you talk to the person again, you can see that he says good job defending the city, and then it'll tell you to get him out of the cage, and he'll give you a weapon. So you can pick that up, and then it shows press D to attack. So if you try and attack, it'll play the attack animation, and then it'll pause your movement until the time is up. So if you attack the cage, the text will go away, and then you'll see that the cage turned red. So it looks like you did some damage to it. And then an explosion plays. And then when you talk to him, he says that it's pretty weird that the wood would explode once being hit. And then you move on, and then he says, anyway, go talk to the king in the castle. He may have a task for you. So then that prompts you to move over to the castle, which is on the other side of the map. And then you can move over there and then enter inside. This is all I have so far. I haven't added the scene when you enter inside the castle, or the king interaction. So that's going to be up next for me to do. So that's basically the game that I have right now. This isn't the first time I tried making Cavebrawlers. I tried it before, but I ended up running into issues with time. I got really involved in many projects, I guess you can say. I started doing a couple more projects than I should have, and then I started getting too involved in them, and that ended up getting me out of Cavebrawlers, and I stopped working on it for a while. And then when I came back to it, I figured out that the code was really it was basically spaghetti code. It looked awful. So I decided to start over. I deleted all the code, and I started from scratch again with the code, only the code. And I created all the scripts again, and it works basically how it used to. So let me go over here and show you guys the weapons that I have right now. So you can pick up the sword. This is the dagger, and then it'll play little animations, and you can switch weapons by pressing up on them. And if you press up, it'll attack up, attack down, attack left or right. And then you can also press shift and then A or D to do a lunge animation, lunge attack. And it'll move you up, and it'll ignore gravity for a while, and you won't receive any damage while in lunge mode. And I added a bow, and I also added a arrow count on the top left. It shows how many arrows you have and how much are the max. So you can use the bow by pressing Q or E. Q to attack left, and E to attack right. And I'll just spawn an arrow and add a force to it. And then the staff, you can see that you have energy bars on the top left, right next to your heart. That shows how much magic that you have. So if I press shift and Q to use the magic left, and then Q, shift and E to use right, you can see that it explodes after a certain amount of time. It also explodes if it collides with an enemy. Any enemy within that radius will receive damage based on the weapon. And then you can see that the magic also goes down based on how many times you used it. And once it goes down to 0, it'll stop you from using it. I'm gonna add little potions across the map that you can pick up, and it'll fill up your magic. You can see that you can't use it. Same thing goes for the bow. So let me go through and dissect each of the scenes so far that I have. So let me go over here. You can see the little scene. I have all the sprites in the background, the bartender spot. And then for the glow effect, I'm actually just using a sprite that goes over it. It's right here, the color. And then once the power goes out, it switches onto this one, the darkened one. And I have a color swap script that every time this threshold is reached, time to swap, it'll swap the color, and then it'll also allow you to input the alpha, so you can change the opacity of the color. And I also added an option for random and sprites to effect, so you can affect more than one sprite. Let's say you had children or something for the sprite. And you can choose a random, so it'll go through them randomly. If it's not selected, it'll just go through them periodically. So red, purple, blue, green, yellow, and orange, and then it'll keep repeating itself. And so let me show you the custom screen script. So right now all my scenes have this default scene prefab, and I don't want to mess with the prefab too much because I want to keep all the scenes with one prefab. So I did this custom scene, and it'll change all the values from the level manager that I have. The level manager keeps references to all the animations, the task, the canvas, and all the UI, all the prefabs. It also has the audio source, so all the audio plays through there. And I also added a data model using my sdata asset that I created. So all the data is stored in here. Let me open it all up. So this would be all the projectile data. The stinger is something I want to add on to a B entity that I have in mind. And this is all the information for all the projectiles that I have right now. This would be the arrow. And then I also have one for the turret arrow, one for the fireball, and one for a bomb entity that I also want to create. So this keeps all the references to the damage, speed, rotation, torque, vertical force, and accuracy. So in accuracy, instead of having all the arrows go to one spot when you shoot them, it'll change the force that it adds on, giving you a separate spot where it lands every time. This is how inaccurate that will be. And auto destruct time, if it's -1, then it won't destruct. But for the fireball, after 0.8 seconds, it'll destruct by itself because it's out of range. And also cling is a variable here. It's a boolean. So if cling is true, then the arrow will latch onto the entity that it hits and set the parent of that arrow to that entity. So that way the arrows will stay stuck inside of enemies and stuff. Fireball does not have this, but the turret arrow does. And this is all customizable. I can change this however I want. I have a notes field that lets me write down notes about the projectile. It won't actually read it in game, and it won't do anything. It's just for reference. And I have an instruction data. So this is all the tutorial information. So press up to interact and get up, press down and up to move turret. I also have all the languages, so when people change your language, it'll be able to switch over to a different message to pop up. And monster data, this one keeps all the information about all the entities. So like slug, and then the bat, the bee, and then this has all the information about the health, the damage, the movement type. It can be either a wave or a linear movement. The bat moves up and down, like it's flapping up and down. You can change how fast it moves, the wave speed, wave height, and this is, if it's a grounded entity, then it'll allow you to change the distance to the ground. And then can jump. So since it's a bat, it can't jump at all, but it can move though. And then like the projectile, it has the notes, so I can write down what the entity will do, and I can read it inside Unity. I have player data. This keeps all the information about the player. So this would be the type, how much health he has, the magic, his arrows, max arrows. This is all saved, but this one is the default. The one that's saved is in here. So this key takes care of this shows everything about the player that they have right now. So melee weapon is kept as an integer. All these weapons are integers. It loads from the weapon document file that I have. Let me open that one up. So when you switch over to a weapon, fist is like the empty weapon, stone dagger, and this all has IDs, and then what goes in there would be the ID of the weapons. All the weapon data keeps all the audio clips, the effects, the audio size. The audio size would be how many clips it has, whether or not it's fists, and then the weapon sprite, which it loads from the resources, the damage, the type, and these variables are how much of whichever it uses. So if this were 1, it would use 1 arrow, and if this were magic, it would use 1 magic point. So player data keeps references to the level 2. That's about it for the data. I created a data manager which loads all this data and allows me to get from it pretty simply. I created a bunch of static methods that allow me to get info, set the info, and add the row. The data target would be the text document that it'll edit. So if data target were equal to chat data, it would go through here and search in this document. If it were instructions, it would search for that. And all that is set up through the level manager inside of the data model. So this is all the data that I have, and you can see here that this is the name, this is the file name, and the data is filled up when you load the game. This keeps all the information to the data. And this is the default data file. So this is where it loads from originally, and if it's set to save, it'll save over to the game data folder, like the player data has. And it's set to save every time you open a door. That way you can continue off. If you exit out of the game, you can continue off where you left in the intro. So let's say I left this building, and then and then the game crashed, or I decided to quit. It would spawn me back in the village right after exiting the disco. And custom scene. So I have a bunch of events. So once you sit down, it'll display the text. The first instruction. The first instruction you can see was press up to interact and get up. So it reads from all this correctly, and you can change in the options you can change the language, and that'll change accordingly. So yeah. And then I also have an event manager. So I can make custom events. So every 8 seconds this will come out, and I can change whether or not it repeats or anything. And I can add multiple events. So once this one goes off, then I'll move on to the second one, and then the third and the fourth. That's how I have the wave system. And I can also change it to when the enemies are dead, it'll do a custom event, or when health is 0 for a specific entity, it'll call an event. I can have custom key events, so that's how I have the tutorial for the turret. So when you press up or down, it'll move on to the next tutorial, which is holding down D, and then when you hold down D, it'll move on to completed, which will remove the text at the bottom. What else? The interactables are basically just an interactable class. I can change the type, whether it's a chair, a chattable, which would be talking to someone, or a turret. And the turret is actually enterable or exitable. So if I enter the scene, and I go here to the custom scene, which controls whether or not you can enter or exit. Let me turn both of those on. So once it loads up, whoops, I got the wrong scene. it would be enter turret. And then I go over to the custom scene. You can see here that I have the enemies dead. So this would be first wave, second, third, fourth, and then fifth, and then the end wave, which would move on to the next level. So if I go over here to the enter and exit, you can see once it starts up, if you press up and down, if you press up, it'll take you off, and if you press up again, it'll put you back onto it. So you can move around, it's totally interactable. But now that I think about it, pressing up and down to control the turret might not be the best solution. I might have to change it to W and S. Because if you press up to move the turret up, it'll get you off the turret. So if you get back on it, you can control it, and if you get up, you can't control it at all. It's a pretty sweet system. The entities, they're set up to move to a specific entity, which would be, I think it's right here, the end position. And this has a health script and entity. And since it's set to type stationary, it won't move at all, and it won't need anything else, any animators or anything. And this also has an event manager. So when the health is 0, it'll load the level again, and it'll restart it. This has a health, you have 50 health. And the entities are programmed to move over to this. So if we go to my spawner, you can see that the target is set to end position, and this will manually change the entity target. And they spawn out of these separate positions. The first one would, the bat would go to the position aerial, and skeleton would go to a position grounded. And I have the fast pool asset, so it'll add them on so I can pool the enemies and optimize the game. What else? Oh yeah, the entities. I have a pretty cool system for them. They will detect any entities that are near them. Where'd I put it? Here, let me just go in the village. And let me spawn in some entities. Here, I'll spawn in a bat. So you can see I have a box collider, and if an entity walks between them, it doesn't have to be the player, it can be any entity. If it's programmed to move to them, it'll do it. And then you can see he attacks them, he chases them, and if the player leaves a certain threshold, he'll go away. And then the bat will go back to its original position and go back to an idle position. Idle animation. And then if I get close, it'll attack. And it's programmed to attack one time and then go back. So it'll come back, attack me once. Go back. And then I can grab a weapon. Let me try and fight him. I'll grab a bow. That didn't do much work. So if I attack upwards, he dies and then he falls down. And let me show you the player death animation. So if I take a lot of damage, let me go ahead and make this faster. You just it takes away all the weapons and switches you back to an idle position, and then it'll rotate you up and then move you upwards towards the clouds. And the clouds spawn, and that's the end game basically. And then if we go to, this is what I have in mind. So after you talk to the king, he'll tell you to go over to the caves, which are over here. and then you can enter them and it'll take you to this scene, the selector scene. I think I have this set up. So here you can set up which scene you're going to, which level. I'm going to use these, it's going to be like sort of like Mario, and you can choose which level to go to. And it'll load it from the player data too. So you don't have to start all the way over. What else? Oh, I have a pop-up that I created. It's a pop-up asset. Here, let me move on to the village so I can show you that. So if you press escape and you go to the pause menu, here are the options. You can change the audio. You can choose whether or not you're using a controller. Windowed. I don't have controller support. I'm still working on that. And you can change the language. And since these characters are not supported by the font that I have, it switches onto Arial. And I guess I'm going to have to deal with that for now until I'm able to get it. Then you can go back, how to play, and this shows you a tutorial, which doesn't seem to be working right now, I think. So this should pop up when you press that. And you can't see the text really, I have to change that. So this shows keyboard controls, controller, and then let's say you accidentally hit restart. It'll ask you restart level, you may lose your data. You can click cancel, or if you click menu, return menu, you can lose your data, cancel, or continue, and then it'll load that up. And this is the main menu, so you can see how to play over here too. You can change the options from here, and if we hit play, it'll load you back to the last level you were at. And since I loaded this level last, this is where I'm at. That's basically the game, I guess. Let me show you guys my website that I created. So let's go to the website. Let me go ahead and unsubscribe from it so I can show you guys how it looks and how it works. So this is the unsubscribe script. So if you unsubscribe from the mailing list, it'll destroy you from the database, and then it shows this little message. So let me go ahead and subscribe again. So this requires the email to be in a valid email format, which requires the @ and the .com or the domain, and then you hit subscribe. And then I'll show this little text right here. And let me show you guys the email that it sends over to me. So over here it shows, thank you for subscribing to Cavebrawlers. And then it thanks you for the interest, and then it shows my handle. So if we go back to the website, it shows you have successfully subscribed, and we can exit out of that. And when you subscribe, it sends you the welcome email, and it also adds you onto a database. And I also have a script that allows me to broadcast a message to all the subscribers, and I can set that message to whatever I want. So every time I make an update, I can show them to everyone, and everyone can receive the notification. So this website, there's a contact me form. There's a email link. Here are the screenshots. You can zoom in onto them and show, these are little GIFs. I have to update the GIFs, they're out of date right now. You can see this is the player's house that I'm gonna make. And this is the castle. Here are the game dev logs. This one's gonna go right here. I have to add it on. And yeah, that's about it. You can see the source code from the website too. This entire project is open source, so I don't have to worry about anything. And all my purchased assets are locked away from the source, which is sort of like not open source, but at the same time it is, I guess. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching this game dev log. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.